How we going, lads and lasses? It's me, your boy Mugen. Today is a different kind of video because I'll be talking about a new passion that I've found this year, especially in recent lockdowns, is manga. Now, I wouldn't say I'm a connoisseur, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, I wouldn't say I know a lot or a little about manga and the deep intricacies surrounding manga as a format. But I know stories. I watched so many movies throughout my life, so many TV shows. I've read quite a few books as well, so I know what I'm on about. In saying that, this year I wanted to try and read my very first manga. And if you're looking at the title, you already know what it was. But let me give a little bit of a context of how I got there. Just to give a bit of context to this video as well, I'm going to be talking about spoilers of the manga Berserk. So if you haven't read it, you should probably go read it. Then you can come back and watch this, and then we can geek out about how fucking good it is. At first, I knew of many different stories of what I could read. So after much thought, I decided to read Alita Battle Angel because I had seen the movie and I thought it was okay, but I did feel like there was more to it than what the movie was showing us, so I was very intrigued to read it. Turns out there was. The manga is very, very good, and I was pretty much hooked in terms of the format. Learning to read right to left was a bit of a hurdle, but got used to it very quickly. And I had read comic books before, but this felt somewhat different, especially with the artwork. I got pretty far. I think I got to volume 5, and then eventually I wasn't getting sick of it, but I felt like maybe I should look at what to read next after this. Some of my friends who are probably watching are big fans of Berserk. Throughout my time knowing them, many of them always talked about how good Berserk was. And I knew about it, I knew how popular it was. I didn't know the deep themes of the story, I didn't know how far the story was going, I didn't even know what was happening. Only interaction I had with Berserk was the Golden Age movies, which I watched all of in high school. And they were pretty cool, but they were also very I wasn't sure I was too keen to read something as depressing as those movies were in terms of the story and the themes. So I knew of Berserk. And around this time, I believe 6 months prior, Kentaro Miura, the author and creator of Berserk, died at 54. So when that happened, I started seeing so much people come out and say how much they loved Berserk, how much they miss having Berserk around. So many new people I saw started reading it. So I read the first volume, and then I read the second volume, and then the third, fourth, and I think I got to volume 16, and that's when I realized this will probably be the first one I finish. And it was. I think I got to past the eclipse, and that was as far as I had gotten because I, of course, like I said before, I'd seen the movies. That's all the movies showed you was the Golden Age. So when I finished the Golden Age, that's when everything I saw was really new to me. I knew some things about the Black Swordsman arc, but not a lot. So when I got to the Lost Children arc and the Conviction arc, this was all new territory for me, and it felt worth it. As someone who really enjoys the this is where we are, how did we get here, catch up and go forward, and it really felt worth it. I was hooked to want to find out how this whole story ends. I genuinely felt like there must be a point where this series takes a stumble. It must take a stutter at some point, because right now it feels like we're moving so quickly, there must be a lull. To my surprise, there isn't a lull. There was never a point when I was reading a volume where I didn't feel like I was learning something new about the story, about the characters, and about where we were going, and didn't feel like there was some small or huge development happening at the exact same time. There were moments that I felt like, is this a big deal? And I think it is if I'm paying attention correctly. Having binged it in such a short amount of time, a lot of the events were condensed within my brain of what was going to happen and what I thought could have happened. Turns out it didn't. Me personally, having now finished all of it, I think my favorite arc is the Millennium Falcon arc. Very, I'd say, unpopular opinion, maybe. The reason because of that is just I love how much Guts as a character grows. I felt like the most interesting chapters I saw of him specifically were in the Millennium Falcon arc. He's got a new party, and they're trying to work out things together, and all the characters around him grow exponentially because of each other. To me, that felt so worth it. So worth it to get back where we were before the worst part of the Golden Age. Guts has companions. He's becoming the person he used to be. And he himself even admits, I never thought I'd get this again. I don't really have too much to say about all the other characters. I think there's so much similarities and comparisons that could be made, especially with Guts and Griffith and who they are and what they've done to get where they are, whether or not they are heroes, whether or not both of them are villains, vice versa. That's not really what I wanted to talk about. I just want to talk about how much I love the dedication to character growth. Guts, when he begins, when we first meet him, is a cynical man who sees no value in forging bonds, yet he's fighting for bonds that he has lost. And then when he is realizing how fruitless it was to throw away the only last bond he had and potentially lose it, he realizes how hollow those past 2 years of just fighting apostles were. There was satisfaction to him in killing them. It didn't make him forget any of the pain he felt. It didn't get rid of all the awful memories of all the people he lost in the eclipse. And it distanced himself further from the person he cared about the most, which was Casca. I feel like the best change comes after the Last Children arc. Guts is much more willing to accept Puck, who is the companion that always stuck around, regardless of any kind of human consequence. Because at the time, nothing else is as important. He's willing to take someone hostage to get what he wants, a child, and that's who he is. But I think deep down he knew at the time that he didn't want anyone to become like him. That's why he said, "There is no paradise here," which I think is a great line and a great image. I love that image. But getting back to the Millennium Falcon arc, that's where I felt like the real development of Guts' character began. He wasn't happy-go-lucky, but he was still cynical. You knew he wasn't the person he could be again, but he was a different variation. He was quiet and calm, but he still stood up for his party, his newfound companions. And he still found commonality between him and them. He always said, "Do what you want," and people chose to stick by him. And to him, to try and stop people from doing what they want is just as pointless as someone trying to stop him from what his mind is determined to do, whether it be killing apostles, trying to save Casca, and trying to get to Elfheim. Regardless, he has a will of iron. Nothing's going to get through that. And so when people of a same caliber are willing to spend their lives possibly following him in the most dangerous situations on this earth, he can't say no to that. And he's so tired that he's willing to accept the help. I thought that was amazing. It was at the exact same time, it was the same person we'd been following and a completely different person altogether. I'm unbelievably starstruck at how I was reading all that, and then I felt it all change within a matter of volumes, and that was amazing. And it felt worth it. It didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel like it took too long. It felt perfect. Then of course throughout the Millennium Falcon arc we see more and more of him willing to put trust in other people, especially Farnese in protecting Casca, knowing that she can't do a lot, but the one thing she can do is protect the person who's most important to him. And she's willing to be useful to try and become, so many of the characters, become a different person than what they were. And same with Serpico. Serpico used to hate Guts, and now he sees him as one of the best allies he has at this moment, because he's created a Farnese that he himself can admire. Isidro sees a way to improve himself, especially with the help of others around him. Shirke sees a way in which she can better improve herself as a mage and become the person she wants to be while being around Guts. And having this common goal of trying to help this one person is great. All in all, the whole Light of the Hawk stuff's going around, which is also really cool because it feels like the true villain is now becoming the hero of the world. And that just feels wrong in so many different ways, even though the world has now turned out for the better. And that's one of the things that I thought was great. The storytelling can be both backwards in terms of all the good things can happen, but all the bad things could happen at the exact same time. But it's also the reality of life in a lot of ways. And I'll get back to that because I feel like this manga portrays life in an extremely honest way within a fantasy setting, which is kind of crazy. I loved mostly my favorite chapters being the beach. The beach scenes were amazing. Guts has just got the Berserk armor. He's nearly died trying to fight off the new band of the Hawk. A lot of them feel like they could have lost everything that moment, but they didn't. And all the characters are very worried about what Guts will do when he's in that armor. They realize he himself is a danger to them, but they know that if he doesn't put it on, he can't really fight to his fullest and protect them. Because I think he's realized that he does care about their safety. If they are hurt or if they're in danger, no question. And that's a huge change. We see it later when Farnese begs him to kill the apostles that are in the ballroom, and he sees it as charity, but because it's important to his friend, it's important to him. The willingness to help strangers, and they may in turn help him. Just something that he would never have done he would never have cared about in volume 1 and 2. Not at all. Out of the new companions, especially in that arc, I really like Serpico. I think he's really cool, how he can be very calm and chill, and then as soon as a fight happens, he's got that face, and he's got that ferociousness of fighting. Every character feels fleshed out and has a real life that you can trace back and show how they became the person that they are today. Going back to the beach, it felt the most important because it felt like we were getting somewhere really close to Elfheim, closer and closer to a goal that was so real. We got the introduction of a huge kind of lore setup with the Moon Boy, which was really cool, showing how with Guts and his companions that there is still a future that they hope to have, especially with Farnese. I hated her so much when we met her, and then she grew to be one of the best characters, hands down, and that's what I really, really, really like about that character as well. This is a character I despise. You feel like they don't really know anything at all about what's really happening. They're not well prepared about what to do, and they're extremely flawed. And then she becomes the most dependable and one of the most well thought out and well written characters, hands down. If you don't think Farnese is an awesome character, especially now, I don't know if you've been paying attention. Really, I don't think you have. The beach as well definitely shows off sides of what Berserk can offer. You have on one side the awful brutality of humanity and beyond. Demons, sacrifice, all these different versions of sin being visually shown to you in the most horrific artwork that you can see imaginable. It's something beyond nightmarish. It's something that is just pure suffering in the word, and the way they always best describe it in the manga is just despair in a visual format. And that's terrifying to see. It's also incredible, amazing artwork. But then on the other hand, you have hope, love, some of the most beautiful images of a character who has done and gone through some of the most awful things of humanity, but is sitting underneath the moonlight, content and seeing the true beauty of this world despite all the awful things he's experienced. And not just him, every other character. So many characters have gone through so many awful, terrible things and have come out for the better and seen a true lovely sight. It's where I like how Berserk is kind of like a real mix of reality. Reality has both these things. The worst kind of humanity, but also the best. And Berserk has a great way of showing that, not only through its artwork, which I could go on for about the artwork. I just love how in volume 1 and then in the latest volumes it is like seeing someone grow up and get better and better every time. But through the artwork, it really does encapsulate those feelings. There are some things that you really can't even put into words, which is really, really powerful. And I mean that. And some of these words, I can't really say they do them justice because there are some images that do so well, and they do so well in the context of story. My personal favorite panels are a lot of the ones of Guts in the Berserk armor for action. I feel like the action there is just masterful. So much going on, and it looks like such a beautiful mess. You can see how the action is progressing. It's a mess, but at the same time, it's perfectly structured. And I don't know how he achieved that, but it's incredible. And then you have the amazing quiet moments. Those panels on the beach, no words for a lot of them. Of Guts just looking at his companions, taking Shirke's hat and putting it back on her head, sitting under the moonlight. Many times just sitting and not really saying anything and just seeing this amazing image of this character. And I think some of the best ones, and I love this chapter, and I don't hear it as much, but it was one of my favorites because it got a reaction out of me that I thought was really unique. And I do love it when stories do this with Guts and his story and the way it's planned out with Berserk. You start with him the way he is, and we go back and we learn how he became the man he was. I loved it when they brought in a chapter from his teenage years, the flower chapter, as I'm trying to remember it right now. The flower chapter was so short and sweet and perfect because it felt like it really brought back this moment in Guts' mind. And to me, it made me feel like how far we had come in his life, not just the story, but his life, and how much he has grown as a character, and how even then, he's still the same kind of person, not in a bad way, but he still has these moments, these fears, these things that he wants to do, these things that he wants to say, but he never can seem to. And that burdens him. When he couldn't save this one fairy and get that flower there, that made me feel like there was still that person inside him, despite really all the awful things that have happened to him. And I love that chapter. I think the artwork is incredible. Seeing a young teenage Guts, but with Miura now having perfected his character designs, was amazing. I haven't talked a lot about story and what I dislike, what I do like. There isn't a lot of dislikes, honestly. I felt like any kind of dislike is dismissible for me. I am upset that it does feel like we'll never get an ending. And who knows, maybe we'll. I know a lot of people don't care, a lot of people do care. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter too much, because I'd rather have an unfinished masterpiece than something finished and lackluster in the ending because people wanted to see something complete. It feels like Miura's artwork and the way he wrote the story mirrored his life, to me, at least how I saw it. So when he passed away and he had this last chapter, it did feel like he had so much more to go. There was so much setup that was still yet to be completed. But is it one of those things that the amount of stuff that will build up in our head, will it really ever be as good as what will be put down the page, especially if he isn't there? Because if we don't have him, what is Berserk anymore? Is Berserk the same? So when we got the last chapter, I was pretty upset, and I scrounged around thinking, surely there's another. And there isn't. And that's okay. Maybe one day, who knows? And will it be good? I don't know. But I'm happy with what we got, because those last panels were amazing. I do wish that there was some other way to leave it off and make sure that Guts has his ending that I think he deserves, and so do all the other characters. And I'll be honest, I do want to see Griffith die. That's my hot take of this video, is I do want to see him lose. I do want to see him die. Even if Guts has to die to kill him, that's fine, because I think he'll left behind such a great lineage. I'm at that point where I feel like there's so many stories that rarely can captivate me anymore. But it was so unique and rare to read something that felt like it was its own thing. And sure, it took inspiration, and it absolutely took, inspiration and homage from so many different things that Miura loved, and then created things that a lot of people love to use, especially the whole big huge sword thing. But it was so unique and refreshing to see something that was so, this is unlike any story I've read. And I love fantasy. I've experienced so many different fantasy stories, not just in games, TV, and movie, but this was unlike anything I had seen, in some of the best ways and some of the worst ways. By worst, I mean, there's some stuff that I wish I couldn't remember in these panels. Specifically torture. I don't really want to see that ever again. But that's what made it so unique. There were some things that I hadn't even thought could be done in fantasy, or even just storytelling in general, and the way these characters progressed, the unique way in which they present themselves, the way the action unfolded, the way the story and the world was building slowly, and it didn't feel like it came out of nowhere. It all felt so consistent. This is storytelling on another level, because at the end of the day, regardless of all the action, of all the amazing artwork, all the deep themes and different things of religious themes, social themes, moral themes, historical themes, mythological, all these different things, regardless of everything that has been put into this piece of artwork, it's a story about a guy who is trying to figure out who he is and what to do with his life. Really, that's it. It's a story about a guy trying to figure out where he belongs in the world, who he is, what he's meant to do. And while it hasn't been an easy journey to get somewhere, it's been so refreshing to see something like this. It spoke to me on another level. It's incredible, because, I'm 24. What am I meant to do with my life? I don't know. This guy doesn't know either, and he's lost an eye, an arm. He doesn't know anything either. But that's it. It's literally it's a story about a guy trying to figure out where he belongs. And I think that's such a great, simple story, but everything around that core stands tall because of that core. And it's not just him. Every character is trying to figure out where they belong in this world, and whom they belong with, and how they can be the people they want to be. And that's so powerful. And that's not something I've seen in any other kind of story this year. If you've gotten this far in the video and you yourself haven't seen Berserk, and you've seen some spoilers of what I've just said, definitely please go read Berserk. I mean, it probably won't change your life. Maybe it will, I don't know. If you like fantasy, good storytelling, and god tier art, you must read Berserk. That's just a fact. These are one of the classics. And it's not like reading an old Charles Dickens novel and feeling like it hasn't aged well. This has been going on since 1989, and I read this within a month, and I was so happy I did. Finally, thank you, Kentaro Miura, for making this story. Rest in peace. But if you got this far in this video, I appreciate you for watching and hearing me just blurt out all the things I loved about this story. Hopefully I get to read more manga and then I can talk about it. That'd be really cool. Thank you for watching. Also, subscribe to the channel because we do other stuff. I do some games, I do some streams. I might talk about movies again, who knows? I need to go see a movie because right now there's just Spider-Man. There's nothing really else to watch. If you want to see stuff like that and maybe some more manga stuff, who knows? Then please subscribe and check out my other videos. I appreciate it. And as always, have a good one, lads.